Let's get it. All right, what up, everybody? This is So What's the Issue? I'm Solo Foe. Today, I want to talk to you about world population. Do y'all remember back in the day when we used to do the read and write thing in history? And used to give you like a little question or whatever. Does anybody remember whenever they asked us like, oh, y'all know in China, they're only allowed to have two babies in each household. Like each household is only allowed to have two babies or whatever. And when we were younger, we was like, hey, that's messed up. Because, we probably had, which for me personally, I got right now 18 brothers and sisters. So, back then I was like, nah, that's crazy. Because if I only had two brothers, if I only had two brothers, it'd only be me and my brother. It'd like be only us, and I'd be missing all my other siblings and stuff like that. And, that's kind of the mentality we had. And, we all kind of reacted that same way. Like, man, it's crazy. Like, why would they why is it right that their government could restrict them and have them only have so many babies? But, I'm wondering, has anybody's opinion changed to this date? Because my opinion has severely changed about how many people, like how many kids should be allowed in each household. And to be honest with you, I'm almost at a point of where I believe certain people shouldn't even have kids at all. But, I'm going to jump into the topic completely. All right, so back in the 1800s, did anybody know that it was 1 billion people on the planet? Now, this is 400 years later. I will say that. But right now, the Earth's population is at 8 billion people. Do y'all know how crazy that is? Like, I'm going to get into why that's so crazy. I'm going to just jump into it. All right, so has anybody thought about what prisons were originally supposed to be? They were originally supposed to house, and I'm just going to give a made-up number, but y'all understand when I get to a point. But let's just say a jail was only to be for 8,000 people. What do y'all think the population is in a jail right now? Because at that point in time, when those buildings were built, they weren't built for this population. They may have had a projection at one point in time, but right now you got jails where prisons where basically they done cleared the rooms, like they done cleaned up an old gym, they done cleaned up an old kitchen, like they didn't have to make space in jails to where basically they got cots in the middle of an old gym, and they're like, hey man, who's got the lightest sentences around here? Like, hey dog, like, man, you said you were in here for what? A petty crime? Or you said you stole or robbed a liquor store or whatever. Like, hey, all right, look here. We're gonna sit you inside of this gymnasium, and if you have good behavior, we're gonna give a word that you've had good behavior. You're having a change in your actions or whatnot. And, we're going to allow you to go back out into the world's population because, right now they can't handle the severe number of people that are in each jail. And that is so crazy to even say. Like, let's put it like this. So that's just a jail. That's only just a jail and its population to where, they've had to find new metrics or measures to make it work for people to be able to stay inside of a prison for a long term, which that's bad within itself because criminals, people that are doing bad things, people that you don't really want free, we claim we want people free, but really, if I was to ask you, you really don't want certain people free, just to be real. But these are people that, need to be inside of a correctional facility, but they can't keep them. People that are doing murders are getting out within the same year. Like people that are dropping bodies out here are getting out in the same year that they got locked up. Like that's just how bad overpopulations in prisons have gotten. And it's like, I say that to say this. We just had a pandemic. Our pandemic was COVID. Do y'all see how they had to, even in your own local city, they had to make tents outside for people to be able to be seen by doctors because the rooms are so packed up with whatever. Now, remember the prison example. Can you imagine what an ICU would look like? Can you My bad. I'm sorry, y'all. But could you imagine what different parts of a hospital, like even just with the I don't remember what they call the specific room where they hold the babies, but can you imagine where just freshborn babies would be? Because they would have to start putting, like, I can only imagine how many babies would be in one room at a hospital that was built back in the 1800s. Let's just say some as soon as 1900s, but some as soon as the 2000s. But they were only built for those populations. Can y'all imagine what in 15 years, just 15 years, with 8 billion people, how that number is going to jump up severely? Between 400 years, it jumped up 8 billion. Believe you me, my father alone had 18 kids. And y'all are out here doing the exact same thing. So I mean, it ain't far off. Y'all got 5 and 6, but that's still bad. Do y'all know how bad that really is? That y'all spitting out 6 and 7 kids in one household, and then your 6 and 7 kids turn 18 and start producing more kids and more kids and more kids. Like, overpopulation is about to be crazy. Like, y'all be talking about, well, the government, they're making clone meat. They're making all types of this, and that. Hey, we love chicken in our community. Where is all these chickens coming from that's gonna feed all these babies? Like, I don't even know where all the chickens come from now. But people get mad because they see that they got a process to make a full-grown chicken in a matter of a week. I think it is. It's something weird. I don't know about the speed process, but it's crazy that they got to do that. Now, hopefully that's an actual answer for in 15 and 20 and 30 years. Hopefully that stays an answer that they can clone meat to, push it out there. And I ain't saying I won't clone meat. I'm not saying it's a good thing to have clone meat or anything like that. But just think about the sheer number. It jumped from 1 billion to 8 billion in a matter of 400 years. Can you imagine what 8 billion people are going to do in a matter of 10 years, in a matter of 15 years? Imagine your New York strips. Can y'all imagine what those are going to look like? We've all heard about the New York minutes and stuff like that. Like, we've all seen the traffic in New York. That stuff is crazy. I hear Atlanta's bad. I have never been to Atlanta, so I don't know about it. But I hear Atlanta is another bad place for, like, just the expressways and stuff like that. Can y'all imagine what 10 years more of people turning 18 is going to look like for your streets? Like, that's going to be insane. So I just want to say, like, what can we learn from what might happen? And I don't want to turn everything into a learning process or nothing like that, but it's ugly in my opinion. Like, like, if I could go back and tell my younger self and tell all the kids, like, hey, your teacher is speaking from their political beliefs. And, we didn't really know that much as kids that, our teachers pushed their political beliefs off on everybody else. And, even parents and stuff like that. But, it's a little bit different between your parents because, that's how they want you to be raised. But, we carried energy. So if the teacher said, hey, you're only allowed to have 2 kids in a good way, we would have been a little bit more welcome to the thought. But the teachers back then used to say it in a bad way. So we carried that thought process of like, oh man, in China, you're only allowed to have 2 kids? Like, no, that's not fair, because why should the government be able to tell you how many kids to whatever? But, I want to know, how are we taking care of all these kids in these households? How do you reasonably take care of 4 kids? I'll leave it at 4, because I've been saying this for years. Eventually, you're going to miss somebody's something. And if you're not missing somebody's something, then you're not raising your kids right, in my opinion. Because it should always be a baseball game. It should always be a football game, a debate team. It should be always some type of event going on. Because outside of that, what are you doing with your kids in our neighborhood besides letting them run around the projects and run around the hood? Like, what are we doing besides that? Like, so if your child isn't in sports, if your child isn't in some type of academics program, like if your child isn't doing something constantly, like what is it that you have your kids doing? Because I can tell you right now from my personal experience and all the people that I know, just going to school didn't cut it for us. We went to school and then school turned into something else because we had too much idle time. And we had quote unquote parents that worked, quote unquote parents that were too busy to, give up that extra time to come out and spend time with us. This is what we had growing up. And what that turned into was, hey, we ain't got nobody telling us what to do. First, it starts with cussing. All right, we could cuss now. All right, cool. So we move on. We escalate. So if you don't have your child in some type of after school program in our neighborhoods, what are you doing with your kids? Like, and there might be some type of activities that I'm not, accounting for right now personally, because I don't know every single thing that everybody's doing. So if you got something that keeps your child entertained, okay. If your child is in the house, playing the game, I'll accept that, because I wish I would have did that more growing up myself. But for everybody else, it's like, hey, what are you doing with your kids? Because I just can't personally see how just sending them to school is enough, because it ain't. It's far from enough. But like I said, if you're not missing somebody something, if you got 4 kids, you're not doing something right, in my personal opinion, because it needs to be something that keeps you. Too much all the time is just bad, period. But another point, just to segue off of that point, I don't get how which I got family members that do this, and I understand the thought process, but I hate it. But why do we in our community have more kids to get more governmental benefits? The one child wasn't enough? So you're telling me that the first child that got you your Section 8, that got you your food stamps, and all of these things, like, you telling me that wasn't enough? So you needed $200 more in food stamps, so you had a second child. You had another child because you needed $200 more. And I don't know how much the scale of food stamps is currently, but you kept having kids to have more food stamps. But I'm going to tell you like this. I work a job. I make a decent amount of money. I'm not trying to poo-poo on nobody's lifestyle, because I came from the lifestyle. I came from it, so I understand it. But I work a decent job. I make a decent amount of money. I make an okay amount of money. I don't see how $700 off of a government check plus $200, maybe $300, I don't know the scale, but $200 to $300 extra off of food stamps is worth you having 4 and 5 kids. Because let's just say you have 4 kids. You have 4 kids and you got $700. You're making $800 off of food stamps. At best $1,200. I don't know the scale, so correct me if I'm wrong. But you're making somewhere around, at max, $1,900 a month. $1,900 a month don't take care of me by myself. And I own my house. Like, I don't get this mentality of where we keep stacking up on babies. And shout out to the people that actually do have 4 kids and go out there and do it their own legit way, whether it actually is doing nails, selling clothes, working an honest job, whatever it is that you're doing. But this mentality of, like, we have more kids to go to the government and get more money, is it really worth it? I don't know how you stretch $1,900 amongst 5 people. And usually 6 because it's usually a boyfriend or a girlfriend involved, but usually in these situations that I'm talking about, it's usually women. But I don't see how you stretch $1,900. Y'all are true masterminds if you can stretch $1,900 amongst 4, 5, and 6 people. Like, y'all masterminds, because I couldn't do it. But my whole point being, like, are we doing this intentionally? Or are we too, and I'll call it ignorant, I'll be playing out how I feel about it. Are we too ignorant to see that we shouldn't be having 4, 5, and 6 kids? Like, 3 is kind of the max for me. Like, hey, whatever, you have your 3 kids, you have your 3 kids. But outside of having 2 kids, I don't understand what you're doing with I don't understand what you're doing with 4 kids. And it's not to bash anybody with 4 kids, but I just don't get the mentality, because if you have 4 kids and you live in, I'm going to go off my city. If you live in the West End, the East End, or the South Side of my city, like, that's not a good living for your kids. Like, why would you want, quote unquote, to bring up your kids in a West, East, or South End? Why would you want to do that? You knew that wasn't right. But just in general, let me just get back to it. You got 4 kids inside of this household doing nothing besides growing up and going to school. Like, why not give your 2 kids a better lifestyle by having 2 less kids? And everybody loves their babies. I'm not here to talk bad about anybody that does have 4+ kids. But I got 18 brothers and sisters, and I'm damn happy about every single one of my brothers and sisters. But we all have one thing in common. We all grew up in the projects. We all grew up in the hood. We all grew up around dope dealing. We all grew up around shootouts. We all grew up around it. And it wasn't right. It ain't good. It ain't nice. So, are we doing this on purpose? Is a real question. Are we too ignorant to actually see what's going to happen to our kids in a couple years? Like, I don't think the crime rate has went up. I think the same people that do the same things that they've been doing, been still doing the same exact thing. Period. Personally. Like, the only difference is there's a bigger population. So if you told me in 2000 there were, quote unquote, 60 deaths in a year, and in 2020 it's 120, I don't think anything's new. I personally believe it's the same. You just got more people killing each other. You just got more incidents where these situations happen. The same people are doing the same thing because they all come from the same place. We all come from the exact same neighborhoods or whatnot. I just want y'all to think about our population. Think about the roads. Think about, hospitals. Think about all of these things that weren't built to actually, withhold over 8 billion people, but, we're still going up. Like, these things weren't made for these type of things. And then on a more personal level, there's a reason why I went there. Like, can we start thinking about, our kids' lifestyles? Because if you got 2 kids rather than 4, if you got 2 kids rather than 4, you can give those 2 kids a better life, because if you're working a job or have some type of honest living or whatnot, you can provide better for those 2 kids rather than, watering down what you can do for 4 kids. And that's just for your kids. Since you love your babies so much, love them by not watering down their growth, because you're going to have to short somebody at some point, especially if you're not doing it the illegal way, and if you're not doing the legit way, if you're going strictly based off the government, you ain't living right. And your kids, I guarantee I know what your kids look like because I got plenty of them in my family and I grew up the same way. But, it's been 20 minutes. If y'all like this topic, I'll get back into it again another time. But I thank y'all and I appreciate y'all for watching. Drop y'all likes, comments, share the video, whatnot. Good, bad opinions. I don't care. Let's have the conversation. I think we get better by just having the conversation. Grow to hate me, grow to like me. Thank y'all for watching.